Are you looking for a fast and effective warm-up similar to athletes? Welcome back to the Liftology YouTube channel, and today we're going to take you through 2 dynamic warm-ups athletes use to get ready for their workouts or competitions. We have each exercise and how to perform them timestamped below. Stick around till the end to see each warm-up from start to finish and an explanation as to why athletes warm up this way.
We're going to start with the dynamic calf stretch. Call it a calf stretch, but it actually provides a stretch to the hamstrings as well. We perform this movement on one leg at a time, keeping your knees straight while pressing the heels towards the floor, making sure to try to raise the front of the foot up toward the shin.
Next, we have hand walkouts. This is a great posterior chain stretch, stretching the muscles from the glutes to the calves, and it gets the core activated. While keeping your legs straight, walk to a push-up position, keep your core engaged, maintain neutral hips, and walk your feet up to your hands by driving through your toes. The further you walk your hands forward, the more core involvement you will feel.
What you're seeing here is called the world's greatest stretch. This is a movement that really lives up to its name. This stretch hits the ankles, hamstrings, anterior hips, glutes, thoracic spine, and shoulders. We'd start by taking a large step forward, placing your opposite hand on the ground for balance. Bending the arm closest to the front leg, press your elbow down to the instep of your foot. This is where you should feel the stretch through your hip flexors, quads, and hip external rotators. Next, while in the lunge position, rotate while reaching the bent arm up toward the sky. This is going to target the internal and external rotators of the hips, T-spine rotation, the pecs, and the shoulders. Lastly, bring that same arm down outside the bent leg. Straighten both legs by pressing your butt back and up, and flex your front foot up toward your shin. This targets the hamstrings and the calves.
These 3 movements make up the foundation of the athlete's warm-up. At this point, things change depending on whether your training focus that day is based on linear or lateral movements. If warming up for a sport, we would recommend warming up both linearly and laterally. To continue our dynamic stretches in the linear plane, we begin with the lunge and twist. This movement targets the hip flexors, glutes, T-spine, quads, and core. Step back into a deep lunge and rotate toward the leg in front of you while you're reaching your arm up. This will provide a stretch of the hip flexors while mobilizing the T-spine.
The single leg RDL provides benefits in two. Stretches the hamstrings and calves of the down leg while simultaneously stretching the hip flexors and quads of the leg being lifted. It also activates the glute cord to help maintain stability of the hips and spine. This reinforces the proper sequencing of the hip hinge pattern. While performing knee hugs, you want to keep your back straight and lift your leg as high as you can. Then use your arms to pull the leg into a greater range of motion. This is great for activating the hip flexors and giving your glutes a stretch. For a more complex challenge, try combining the RDL and knee hug. After completing the RDL, instead of putting the leg down, pull it forward into the knee hug. This will put a higher demand on the stabilizers, which leads to greater activation. Once we've gone through our dynamic stretches, we begin to prime the body for a more intense workload. Think of this like priming an engine before a big race. Effort is going to be paramount here, as in, make each movement purposeful.
Angling may look silly, but is an important part in joint mobilization. It begins with your feet hip length apart and standing upright. Step forward with your lead foot and land on the ball while standing on your opposite leg. Shift your weight by transferring it from the ball of your foot to the heel so each part of the foot comes in contact with the ground. While performing the march, it is important to maintain a tall posture with your hips and chest. As we have just said a few moments ago, make sure the effort is there when driving down to the ball of your foot. Exaggerate your drive back with the elbow and swing your arm from your shoulder. Keep all your movements in a straightforward line. The skip can be performed by starting on one foot by double hopping, then alternating legs while pumping the opposite arm. You want to drive your knees as high as you can and skip as far as your body allows you to. Again, effort will help you gain more out of this. Lastly, in the linear progression, we have high knees. Start with your feet hip length apart again and standing up tall. Look straight ahead, open your chest and engage your core. Begin by driving your knee towards your chest slightly above waist level. At the same time, pump your opposite arm. Then, strike down with the same leg, landing on the ball of your foot, while simultaneously driving up with the opposite leg, and continuing to pump those arms. The other route we could go instead of a linear day would be a lateral day. This is where we diverge from the initial 3 dynamic stretches. After performing them, we continue our dynamic stretches with lateral lunges and drop step lunges.
Lateral lunges are great for stretching the medial hamstrings and the groin while activating the glutes and the quadriceps. After stepping out, it's important to sit your hips back and down, as if you're trying to sit back onto your heel. You want to make sure you're flexing your hips and bending your knees at the same rate. Drop step lunges, or sometimes referred to as curtsy lunges, help stretch the hip external rotators and activate the glutes. Without rotating your hips, step one leg behind the other, make sure to cross the midline of the body. Then you want to lower the back knee towards the ground by sitting your hips back and down with your front leg supporting most of your weight. After completing our dynamic stretches, we like to ramp up for our lateral training days by starting with some mini band lateral monster walks. Mini bands are a great tool for activation. The band placement on the lateral monster walks reinforces hip external rotation. When moving laterally, it's important not to let the knees collapse inward, and through this R&T technique, it cues external rotation. You know it's working when by the end of your lateral walks, you feel your glutes humming. Lateral marching is used to open up the hips. Imagine there is a hurdle placed in front of you and you need to step over it with both legs. You want to place an emphasis on the downward movement of the leg as if you are slow motion sprinting. Focus on striking the ground with the ball of your foot and not your toes. As your foot strikes the ground, you want to immediately lift the other leg, as if you are pressing your foot through the ground and it is causing the other leg to rise. After marching, you can then progress to the skipping. This is where practicing that ground reaction from the march really comes into play. You are still stepping over the imaginary hurdles and emphasizing that downward drive of the leg to help create the rhythm of the skip. And we like to finish our lateral warm-up with some shuffling. Make sure to keep the hips and knees flexed. This is commonly known as the athletic stance. Using the cues from the monster walk drill, keep your knees out over your toes and push off your plant leg rather than reaching your leg out and trying to pull yourself over. You should feel your weight supported along the outer edges of your feet. If you feel your arches collapsing and your knees tracking in, try spending a little more time doing the mini band monster walk.
Now, let's talk about what the athlete's typical warm-up does differently. The dynamic warm-up is responsible for using force production and momentum to take their joints through a full range of motion. This is important to athletes because of the specific demands of a competition or a high-intensity workout. This is achieved in the dynamic warm-ups by increasing the blood flow, elevating the heart rate, and improving the extensibility of the muscles, which is important to be able to take the joints through the full range of motion, as just previously stated. This is where the deviation in the warm-up for a linear and lateral day occurs. On the left is the continuation of the linear day, and the right is the continuation of the lateral day. Also, as previously stated, athletes getting ready for the competition may perform both. Having clarified that, let's get back into the reasons the warm-up is important. Another key component of this type of warm-up is its use of complex movements to get you mentally prepared for your workout and stimulate better body awareness. We hope you liked the video and want to hear more from us. If you did learn and enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content. Until next time, make sure you're working out just as smart as you are hard.